Hey, I want to take a moment. Let's welcome everybody who watches online, our Mesquite family. Come on, let's give them some love. We're so glad you're joining us. And you're really in for an informational, but a convicting and challenging word today. If you're a guest with us, my name is Joey, along with my wife. We're the lead pastors here. Pastor Grace Ann, she's the location pastor. She's right over there. She leads this location. I'm going to teach you a little bit about some tradition today. I'm going to give you some information today. You got to lean in. It's going to feel like class a little bit today. Is that all right? I know sometimes I'm up here and I run around and I hoot and holler and it feels good. But I got to educate you a little bit today, even deeper, if you're all right with that. And if you're not, too bad. I'm going to do it anyway. You're already here. But I want to help you understand Lent. Anybody heard of Lent before? Anybody come from a Catholic background? Yeah, right? Fish fries on Fridays, all the good things. When I was, I don't know, middle school, high school, one of them, I started to bring my friends to church for the first time. And I remember the one friend, I really brought him one of the first times. And after, he was like, bro, you're a part of the occult. And I was like, how do you figure that? Like, what makes us a part? He's like, well, people are just like, there's lights and like, and there's like, and it's like people are like clapping and lifting their hands and singing. And I saw people like crying and like high-fiving and hugging each other. And like, man, I'm surprised we didn't die, like they made us drink something or something. And I'm like, what? Like, you know me. And so anyway, he went and spread that rumor all throughout our school. God bless him. So I had to fight that I was the weird, cult guy. So anyway, but the thing is this, is when we see something that we don't understand, as humans, our initial inclination is to fear it. So when you see something that you don't get, this happens racially all the time. We see something I don't understand. So my initial response is to be afraid. And that's a human thing. That's human nature, to be afraid. Now, we got to fight that. And what smart people do, what victorious people do, and what godly people do is they don't stay afraid. We know that we're not given the spirit of fear. We've got a sound mind. We got Christ in our chests. So when we see fear, we follow it and we educate ourselves about it and around what the subject is, and then we can have a full understanding. And I commend you today for being in church because I'm going to educate you today. This may not be my normal preaching where I'm hooting and hollering and running around and you're saying amen. You're like, wow, that guy can preach. Maybe you don't say that, but I really want to teach you today. I think it's important that you have some real understanding of why we do certain things that we do in the church. I mean, have you ever noticed sometimes you see things in church and you're like, that's weird? Anybody? You're like, yes, every week I come to this church and something, like the pastor, his outfits, they're weird, So it's like, whatever it is. But there's things in the church that they can be weird. And it's like if you've never been to church before and you see people clapping or singing or lifting their hands or like they're facing here and they're like, are we singing to these guys? And like, what's happening? And everyone's hugging and you're just like, man, what's going on? But I would like to say this to you, that there are a lot of things in Christianity to a culture that is anti-Christ might see things that we do as weird, and that's okay. Now, I'm not suggesting we go and do weird things like do the worm across the floor or the electric eel or whatever, whatever, electric slide, whatever, okay? I'm in the clouds, all right? I don't even know those things. But there's just things that like culturally, have you ever watched church on TV and go, what is happening? You're like, oh my God, and everybody's flying everywhere and all kinds of things. Look, there are things that are in the church that we've been doing for thousands of years, and they're good. Now, one thing about the church is always evolving. The church is always growing. It's supposed to be. We're supposed to, as a church, we're supposed to be relevant. We're supposed to be modern. We're supposed to be reaching people and be salt and light in our culture. So we're supposed to reflect an element of our culture, but be set apart and stand apart by the holiness of God that's in our life. So what we say around here is we're not married to a method, we're married to the mission. So methods could change. You might walk in here one day and we're all in the balcony. I don't know. Right? That's a method, how we're seated. Okay, that's a bad example, but I couldn't think of anything else. Right? I mean, what we do, how we do it, it's a method. But the mission that Jesus is Lord, that we're called to go and make disciples and care for our world and be love and be light, I mean, that mission, that never changes. But there's things like Lent, that I want to dive in and teach you about it, because we can't just throw out certain methods. We can adjust them, we can make them modern, but there are certain things that we do in the church that we got to keep doing. They're powerful. It's why we take communion. It's why we read scriptures. Next week, you're going to see thousands of years in age-old practice of baptism next week, and it's powerful. It's necessary. But what is this Lent? What is this idea of Lent? Well, let me give you a little bit of historical context, and then I'll try to walk you through this teaching. And again, I encourage you to take notes, take pictures, smack your neighbor if they fade a little bit. Okay, I got to teach you today. All right? So, in 325 AD, that's 325 years after Jesus' death, there's a council of Nicaea. This council existed because there were some people in the church was growing, there were some people in the church that were saying Jesus wasn't the Son of God. There were some people that were saying he wasn't divine. So the emperor basically said, hey, you Christians got to get it together. Isn't it a shame? Isn't it a day when somebody who's not baptized, wasn't even a Christian, tells the Christians to get it together? You know that happens sometimes in culture? When people are looking at us and we're cursing out everybody on Facebook, but somebody's like, I thought you were a Christian. Get it together, Christian. Right? So you got this guy, and he's like, Christians, get together, figure this out. Then we have the Nicene Creed, which this creed is really a foundation for our faith, what we believe Jesus is the Son of God, he is divine, right? They came up with all these things, but one of the things that came out of the council was this idea of Lent and celebrating Easter. They were pushing Easter even into the Jews. And so this idea that Easter was going to come and they were going to pick a day where they celebrated the resurrection of Jesus. Now let me address that for a moment, because this whole next 6-7 weeks we are preparing for Easter. It's the most important, powerful moment. It's not a holiday. It's not a day you get off school. It is all those things, but it is the linchpin of our faith. If a guy died on the cross, that's great. If he doesn't raise from the dead, this is all a waste of time. But if he did, wow, this thing is for real, and a miracle can happen now. And so we believe this thing, like we believe it, and Easter is the most important part of it. I'll let you in on a secret. It's like more important than Christmas gifts. It might even be more important than Christmas. There, I said it. Judge me. It's everything, because Christ died and he rose again. Now he's raised to life so that Christ can now live through you. It's important. So we prepare for that. And at this council, they made that declaration of how important it was. And what they did is they took 40 days, and I know that this week Lent started. You had Fat Tuesday or Donut Tuesday. Anybody participate in Donut Tuesday? My wife did. She told me she had 18 donuts this week, and she still has abs. People like that make me so mad. You think I'm playing? She told me one day she came over, I had 9 donuts today. And I'm like, Lauren, it's just, I look at donuts, I'm heavier because of it. You know, it's like, they were donut balls, okay, just because she's not here, I want to protect her. They weren't full donut. Anyway, Tuesday, Donut Tuesday they were calling it. Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, right? We've got this calendar that we've developed, but back then they didn't have a necessarily specific calendar. They just picked 40 days before their celebration. And so these 40 days were a time where this is what they did in the early church. Okay, they only ate 1 meal a day and no animal products during their 40 days. 1 meal a day, no animal products. Some of you are like, I can't eat Chick-fil-A? I thought it was Christian to eat Chick-fil-A. No, they didn't even eat Chick-fil-A during this 40 days. I know. And they still knew God. What they were doing is they were preparing for baptism. So on their Easter celebration, they were preparing for people to get baptized, for those who were doing the baptism and for those who were being baptized. It's powerful. What it also did is it developed a sense of unity, continuity. It developed a sense of friendship. Let me explain something to you. I'm going to talk about fasting today. When you fast, friends, listen to me. When you fast, there is an element of your own selfishness that dies, and your selflessness, it rises. So it is a guarantee when you become less selfish, your relationships will get better. Did you know that? I'm talking about fasting today, yet I'm helping you have better relationships. You're welcome. That was free. When we fast, when our selfishness dies and our selflessness rises, the relationships around us get better. And that's what was happening in the early church. They were becoming unified. They were practicing forgiveness. It's a lot easier to forgive when you're in a season of fasting and you realize you're jacked up. And when you see somebody else jacked up, all of a sudden, instead of being mad at them, all of a sudden you've got grace for them. And so this is what it was for. It also prepared and helped people who were deciding to get baptized realize, man, do I really want to follow Jesus? Because it was 40 days of prep to be baptized. Now, we don't do that. For those of you who are getting baptized next week, you don't have to fast 40 days. We're not doing a 40-day. You can just get up in that tank and we'll let you do it. So you're welcome. We made it easier on you. Yeah, I don't know why you're clapping. So, okay, Lent. Here's what it means. In Latin, it describes 40 days, okay? And the English word translated, the English word lengthened or lengthening, it references the stretching process. Come on, somebody. So over the next 40 days, if you choose to participate, and I'm not going to judge you for not, I'm just posing to you today the greatest opportunity for life change and your life to change and chains to break and freedom to take place. I'm putting before you the greatest opportunity for your life to change forever is in front of you. If you don't want to participate in that, it's cool. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm presenting this as an opportunity. But you need to know that the word, it means stretching, a stretching process. Please believe that if you choose to join us over this next 40 days, it's going to stretch you in ways that you don't like. But it will stretch your capacity and your ability to know God, to know each other, and make Him known. It's powerful what will take place. But it is a stretching process. Now, I want to dive in and pick up where I left off last week, okay? I want to pick up on Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. If you weren't here last week, you got to listen to the message last week. Life-changing, not because I preached it, but because I believe the Holy Spirit was speaking. I ended it with this verse, and I believe this is the theme of really the next 6-7 weeks. Paul says, I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Key words right there. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. Really referencing the resurrection. Okay? I've been crucified. Because I've been crucified, He's been raised to life. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. In other words, man, Paul was the realest guy. In other words, listen. In other words, I've got to walk around this earth in the flesh. I got a thorn in my side. I'm messed up. I've missed it. I used to murder people. I used to do all these different things. The life I have to live in this skin, I get to now live in faith. By faith, because of the resurrection, and because I'm in a process where my flesh is being cut off, I get to now live in faith and by faith and see the miraculous in my life. And this is the introduction to fasting. So let me explain it to you. What is fasting and why do we do it? Why do we do it? Well, biblically, fasting is abstaining from food, drink, extra sleep, certain things, maybe Netflix, certain things that you might love that somebody was like, I'm out. He said Netflix. I cannot live. I cannot. Man cannot live on Netflix alone. Okay, sorry. It's laying down something that feeds the flesh because there's something more that you need and that you desire in faith. And so it's a season of saying, you know what, I'm going to only eat one meal a day for the next 40 days because I'm believing God for something greater. Or I'm going to not watch Netflix at all. Or I'm going to get off social media for 40 days. Or I'm going to only drink liquids for 40 days. You know, you name it, you deal with God on it, you can work it out yourself. But it's giving up something for something greater. In Acts 13 and 14, I love this. The disciples in the early church, they were trying to make decisions about something. And so what did they do? They fasted. If you're in a season, look at me, listen to me. If you are in a season in your life where you need to make some big decisions, there is no greater time and season to fast. What am I doing with my career? Where am I going with my life? What's God calling me to? Should I be in this relationship? If you're married, yes. Should I get some help? Probably. You know, whatever, right? But if you need clarity, there's no greater thing that you can do than fast. The purpose of fasting is to take our eyes off the things of this world and instead focus on God, right? Fasting blended with prayer and worship will center us unlike anything else. It will. It's less of us, more of Him. That's what it is. It's less. How many of you could use some less of you in your life? Yes. And all the saved people raise their hand. Everybody else still working it out. Less. Okay, I love this, what Albert, or Adele, and Albert, whatever. Adele, not the real Adele, Adele Kaloun, her own real. I'm sorry. It's my third service. Forgive me. And I've got two more. Explains in her Spiritual Disciplines Handbook, bringing attachments and cravings to the surface opens a place for prayer. The physical awareness of emptiness is the reminder to turn to Jesus, who alone can satisfy. In other words, when we're fasting, Jesus becomes our food. Jesus becomes our sleep. Jesus becomes our entertainment. Jesus becomes all we need. And so does each other. We participate in the fellowship, in the relationships of His kingdom like never before because we need each other. We need each other. So what is fasting? To answer that question, what is fasting and why do we do it? Ultimately, because it's cutting off the flesh, the sin nature that doesn't belong, and it's illuminating and building the spirit man, right? Well, that's why we do it. It's to draw closer to God and draw closer to each other. Okay, and it can be a variety of different things. Here's the next question, number two. What does fasting do? What does it do? You with me so far, by the way? If you are, say yes. Okay, here's what fasting does. The best way to describe what fasting will do for your spirit man is make him fit in a short period of time compared to what it would take for your physical body to get fit over a long period of time at the gym and eating right. Okay, that's essentially spiritually what it does. Fasting, it expedites our spiritual process. Now, I hate going to the gym, okay? I really wish that I could just have an automatic surgery that would keep me pristine and clean and fit. But life doesn't work that way because it's the process that makes us who we're meant to be. The people who stay fit, they're impressive because they have discipline. And fasting, what it's doing is it's teaching us spiritual disciplines so that we can reflect a disciple, which is what we're all called to be. It expedites our spiritual process. I remember when I first met Lauren, my wife, and Lauren was not as sanctified as she is today. We were friends for a while, and Lauren was coming out of a season where she was not living for God. And when I met her, you know, she saw the Holy Spirit in me, and she's like, man, I got to get right with the Lord. Like, and I was in a season of fasting. She's like, you know, I'm going to try this. And I remember watching Lauren from a little bit of a distance. I remember watching her go through her season of fasting. Now, it's cute, it's funny, but I remember how serious this time was for her. I'm telling you, Lauren had been living a lifestyle that was not reflective of a believer. She was hurting, she was broken, she was not healed, She was making terrible decisions, and she gave me permission to share this story. And I remember watching her through this fasting season, and I remember she got sick as she was fasting. She broke out when she was fasting, right? All over her body. She was exhausted while she was fasting. She wept and wept and wept. I remember she was grieving and repenting during that time of her sin. I remember watching it and I was like, man, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do this. But she knew that she was getting set free. She knew that she was being healed and redeemed. And the Lauren that I knew after the fast was a whole lot better than the Lauren I knew before the fast. All of a sudden, all of a sudden I started to see Lauren a little bit differently, if you know what I mean. And I remember, she just experienced a time of healing, and it was painful. But she knew this is what God was calling her to do. Fasting, it expedites the process, but believe you me, it will be challenging and it will be hard. But there's some things, listen to me, look at me. There's some things that some of you got to cut. There's some healing you got to go through. There's some victory you got to have in your life. I heard a story that this morning. I was reading it before I came, and this woman, she lost her baby at 4 months. He was 4 months old. Baby died. Now you can imagine the grief and the agony and the pain of losing her baby. She was turned on to this website that was about fasting and prayer. She started reading it. So she started to, during this season of grieving, started to fast and pray. For 7 months was fasting and praying. On the 7th month, found out she was pregnant again. Of course, 9 months later, has a baby, names the baby Trinity. Powerful, right? But what she says that's even more powerful is that it was during the 7 months, not at the end of it, it was during the 7 months that she really started to find healing and peace and comfort. The Bible says that God is near to the brokenhearted. And it was during the 7 months, not at the end, not after, not when the baby came. Of course, the joy was, right? The joy was there at the end, but it was during that the most development, the most needed healing took place. And what a lot of us do, hear me on this, is things have happened to us in our life. People have done stuff to us in our life, or we've self-inflicted bad things into our life. And what happens to us, I'll give you an illustration. It's like the 15 or 16-year-old girl whose boyfriend breaks up with her in high school, and she runs home to hang out in her room by herself and listen to R&B music and be more sad. Don't act like you didn't do it. You got Boyz II Men on repeat, right? Because some goofball broke up with you. But why? We go and we want more sad stuff on top of our already sad stuff. Because what we're doing is we're finding comfort in the grief, because the grief reminds us of what we've lost. And so then the grief becomes our identity. The grief becomes who we're in love with. The grief becomes our God. Listen to me. I'm telling you right now, what fasting will do is it will take you into a place where there's less of you, where you've got to grieve. If something's happened, you've got to ask for forgiveness. You've got to let stuff go. You've got to give it to God. You've got to surrender it. Some of us, we need to take steps and get some counseling. Some of us, we need to go and for a season even get on medication. There's some things that some of us need to do. But at some point, you got to give it to God and let God have all of you and say, God, you can have me, and leave it there and move on, so that you stop worshiping the pain, stop worshiping the grief, and worship the God who heals you from it, so that you can do something productive in your life. And this is what happens to us. And I think this is what fasting does. Fasting illuminates our flesh, which is our sin nature, and it reminds us of our call to live holy lives, which is our natural state as a believer, to be set apart and different than those who aren't believers. Now, if we're not careful, that statement, just the way it is, sounds pompous and arrogant. Well, I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to be set apart. I'm better than you. I'm this, I'm that. No, it's not any of that. It's just I've been saved by grace. And so because I've been given this unbelievable grace, I must live my life differently. I must be set apart from wickedness. I have to be. And what fasting does, it allows us to break free from some of those strongholds that keep us in the same cycle of wickedness when holiness is your calling. Come on, somebody. That's good preaching. 1 Peter says, for the scriptures say you must be holy because I'm holy. Philippians 2:15 says that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. Among whom you, every person in this room, every person watching on the screen, every single person, you who are called to shine as lights. And that only happens in our lives when we become less and he becomes greater. And fasting is a great way for those things to take place. In the Bible, the word consecration, this is what we're doing. We're consecrating ourselves. We're preparing ourselves. In the Bible, the word consecration, it means to be set apart. It's connected to holiness, righteousness, right? In the Bible, though, there are many religious zealots, many Pharisees, that when someone was unclean, they would claim that they were consecrated and they would stay away from these people. So if you were sick, don't touch me. If you got a disease, don't touch me. If you're a sinner, I'm holy. I'm righteous. Stay away from me. I can't be blemished. But when Jesus came, Jesus pursued those who were contaminated, and he went and cleansed the contaminated. He went and pursued the people who were sick, who were broken, who were ugly, who were hurting. He pursued all of those people, and he neglected the people who thought they had it all together. And really what fasting is us going, God, I don't have it all together. I know you've called me to be set apart and to be holy and righteous, but unless you do it, unless you clean me, it ain't going to happen. And that's what the beauty is of fasting. It's where you and I get to over and over and over and over again come to the cleanser, and he cleans us. It reminds us when we're fasting that we can go to church and we can be religious, but we can be far from God. We can cast out demons in his name and him and us not know him. We can use the name of Jesus to break up with people, but we didn't really like them in the first place, and so we're using God as an excuse. What fasting does is it gets our heart in the right place, our souls in the right place. There's a book that Tim Keller writes, Reason for God. And story of this woman who essentially, well, let me read it to you. I thought I had it memorized. She said, if I was saved by my good works, then there would be a limit to what God could ask of me or put me through. I would be like a taxpayer with rights. I would have done my duty, and now I would deserve a certain quality of life. But if I'm a sinner saved by sheer grace, then there's nothing he cannot ask of me. She goes on to say, this is too costly. I prefer religion. It's more safe and it's more comfortable. In other words, she's going, I don't want grace. I don't want Jesus. I want religion. I want the fish fry on Friday. I want this thing disconnected to spirituality, because the reality is, if I got religion, it's like me paying taxes and saying, God, it's not going well. Now I'm mad at you. I'll vote you out. But in the kingdom, it's not like that. We are saved by grace through faith. In other words, we're going, I believe that you love me, God, and because you gave everything to me, I will now say anything is on the table. And in our flesh, we cannot say anything's on the table. But when we are cutting our flesh and cutting away the spiritual fat, we are essentially saying, God, I'm all yours. You can have it all. And when we give our all to God, there is an unlimited supply of what he gives to us. And religion is both empty and more complicated. Fasting, it teaches us to give it all and attain it all, even when we seemingly have nothing at all. So why are we doing this? Because it's an opportunity for our pride to die, our wrong motives to die, our selfishness to die, our religious spirit to die, our self-righteousness to die, our apathy to die, our immaturity to die, the lies in our head to die. Fasting is an axe to our flesh. That's why we do it. All right, here's the last one. What should we do in a season of fasting? So, let's review. Almost out of here. What is fasting and why do we do it? Well, it's us abstaining from something so that we can have something greater. What does fasting do? Well, fasting, it cuts away our flesh man, and it illuminates our spirit man, and it expedites our spiritual growth process. It draws us together, and it draws us to Him. The last thing is, what should we do when we fast? What should we do? What should we do? I would say the overarching theme of what we should do during our fast is do everything we can to get our hearts and our souls in the right place, to align with God. There's a story of Moses in Exodus chapter 33. He's not fasting, okay? But I think this story shows what he's doing in the physical, what we'll be doing in the spiritual. It shows the steps he's taking, what you're going to be taking if you join us. The Bible says in verse 12, one day Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, take these people up to the promised land, but you haven't told me with whom you'll send me. You've told me, I know you by name and I look favorable on you. If it is true that you look favorable on me, let me know your ways. Keyword, let me know your ways, so I may fully understand you and continue to enjoy your favor. And God, remember this nation. It's your very own people. The Lord replies in verse 14, I'll go with you and I'll give you rest and everything will be fine for you. But think about what's happening here in this passage. God brings up the promised land. Okay, all of us want a promised land, right? All of us want the promotion. All of us want the overflow. All of us want what's next. All of us want what God has for us. All of us want everything that He has. So we want the promised land. We want all the things. But what Moses does in this scenario is he gets away, he goes up to his tent, he goes and meets with God silently by himself, and he doesn't say, God, give me the promised land. What he says is, God, I want to know your ways. You want to connect with God in this season? We're not going to sit here and only ask Him for the promised land, only ask Him for the overflow. We need to. But the first step is saying, God, I want to know you fully. I want to know your ways. I want my heart to be in the right place. I want my soul to be pleasing to you. God, I sneak away and I get on my face and I get on my knees because I want to know you. This is what Moses does. This is what Moses does. And it's also what we should do. We got to go away in our tent. When you have a lunch break at work during these 40 days, don't go sit in your car and sit on social media. Go to your car and open your Bible app and say, God, I want to know you. I want to know your ways. I dare you. I dare you to dive in. I'm telling you, if you do, you will experience the greatest season of your life. Maybe not in the middle of it. But come on, somebody. It's the year of overflow, not the month of overflow. See, experiencing your promised land has everything to do with knowing the God of the promised land. You might be in your promised land and not even know it because your flesh is so big and so full that it's blinding you and that you can't see, you can't sleep, you can't think. You got too much in your hands and God's trying to pour out over you, but you got no room to receive it. And so you could be right in the middle of God's will, but miserable because you don't know His ways. I'm telling you, I think more than anything, fasting sets in a perspective that gets our mind in the right place. Then what happens? Moses said in verse 15, if you don't personally go with us, don't make us leave this place. I don't want to read the rest of it because of time. But what we should be doing in this season is saying, God, I need to know your ways. And God, I want your presence. I want you to meet with me. I need to walk in a season of guidance, of clarity. God, I need to hear your voice like never before. I need open doors, whether it's during this fast or after. God, I don't want to make a move unless your presence goes with me. I'm petitioning heaven for the things that my family needs. There's a desperation, a season of awareness, a season of spiritual growth. It's experiencing what you've been promised and taking hold of it. It's reminding God through these 40 days, looking at his word and going, God, this is what you promised me. I'm reminding you every day, God, I don't want to move unless your presence goes with me. This is what we should do. Seek his presence, his face. You know, I did a 22-day fast when I was 21 years old. No food at all, just liquids. And I remember I was in a season, I was in Orlando, and I was in a relationship that it was going nowhere, but I couldn't get out. You know that relationship? Some of you are like, I'm in that relationship right now. Couldn't get out. I was losing vision. I was frustrated. I felt like I was hitting a glass ceiling spiritually, and I just couldn't get to the other side. And I made a decision. I said, the only thing left for me to do is fast. And so for 22 days, no idea why I chose 22 days. I can't remember, but I did 22 days. And it was hard. I mean, it was chicken broth, beef broth, some tomato soup in the beginning, and a lot of tea, a lot of water, a lot of Gatorades, but I did it. But it was towards the end of the fast. And I really feel like I heard the voice of the Lord, audibly. And that's not something that I feel like I hear regularly or many people do, but I just felt clearly. I remember I was walking around and I felt like the Lord said, go to Dallas, Texas. And I said, Lord, you've spoken to the wrong person. I'm an Eagles fan. Lead me not into the shadow of the valley of death. Deliver me from evil. And thine is the kingdom. But I knew he spoke. Did you know when you fast, listen to me, look at me. Did you know that when you fast, God might ask you to do some things you don't want to do? Oh, but what's on the other side of obedience? And I went. And my life changed. Met Grace in Texas. All kinds of things began to start to take place. God ordained it, but I had to be obedient. But had I not fasted, I might still be there, running around trying to make it there when God's plan was for me to be right here. But what if I wouldn't have fasted? Would I have ever arrived at the place that God called me? I don't know. That's for God to decide, but I'm sure glad I did. And there's not a meal that I missed all those years ago that are making a difference today. It's worth it. It's worth it. I dare you to join us. Now, if you've got a medical condition, do whatever you need to do around that. But I don't think your medical condition affects you watching Netflix or being on social media. Maybe. Moses replied. Verse 17. I gotta go. Verse 18. I'm sorry. They're doing a great job upstairs. It's not them, it's me. Verse 18. He says, God, show me your glory. Show me your glory. In other words, show me the overflow. What Moses did here is he was audacious, radical. He asked for something so radical. Essentially what Moses asked for was to see God. And guess what? God said yes. He didn't let him see his face. He said he would die, but God passed by him and Moses sees the back of God. Well, what happened in that moment is Moses got intimate with the creator of the universe unlike any human being had ever been. Well, what am I trying to show you? That when you fast, in this season, when you radically ask God for the glory, when you radically ask God for the overflow, there's going to be an intimacy that you have with God that you've never had with God ever before. And He will show you great and mighty things. He will. So what are you asking God for in this season? Is it for your marriage to be restored? Is it for shame to be gone? Is it for anxiety to flee? Is it for an addiction to fade? Is it for a stronghold to be broken? Is it for hope to be found? Is it for clarity on the next season of your life? I don't know what your overflow is. I don't know what your steps are. I don't know what your glory that you're believing God for, but I dare you to dive in and see that God isn't who He says He is. See it, because He'll show you. He'll show you. You with me? Can you stand to your feet all over this room? Nobody moving. I want to tell one final story. Even if you got to move, nobody move. Just hang tight. Listen to me. Look at me. My father-in-law or stepfather-in-law or whatever he is, I can't figure it out because, married to all kinds of people over there. It's my wife's family, not mine. He's a plumber. Well, he owns a plumbing company. And he always tells us, I'm just a poor plumber. But we all know he's no poor plumber. He's not a poor plumber. He owns a big plumbing company in upstate New York. And he does really well and does a really good job. But you know what he was before he owned the plumbing company? He's a poor plumber. He's a poor plumber. And you know what the poor plumber used to do? He used to lay under the toilet bowls where all the not so good stuff was. And he's fixing faucets and cleaning crap and he's under this toilet bowl doing a job that nobody else could do but him because he was trained for it. But the thing is before you can get over, you got to start under. Before you can get over to the side that you want to be on, you got to start under and start cleaning up the mess and the junk and the stuff that's been in your life for a long time. And the thing is, God will do it, but it starts with us partnering with Him. And in a season of fasting, it's us under the toilet bowl. God, you can clean that, and that doesn't belong. And God, you can tighten this up, and I need this cleaned. And God, help me out, man. Because at some point, you're going to move from being under to being over. Because the Bible tells me that you're the head and not the tail, that you belong at the table, that His promises are yes and amen. And if you ask Him to show you His glory, He might just do it. But will you kill the flesh and walk in faith? That's the question. And I dare you over the next 40 days to join us and watch what God will do. Come on, you believe that? If you do, say yes and amen.